Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Our webinar will begin in just a few minutes. While you're waiting, please feel free to review our program information at csudh.edu/NCRP-MA. We'll begin in just a few minutes. Welcome to the information session for graduate programs in negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building at California State University, Dominguez Hills. My name is Keith Otterberg, and I'm the Director of Marketing for the College of Extended and International Education at CSUDH, and I'll be your host. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website and on social media platforms shortly after today's session. To begin, feel free to download the CSUDH Negotiation, Conflict Resolution, and Peace Building Information Kit for details about the program and additional resources covered in the webinar. The address is bit.ly/CSUDH-NCRP-info kit. We have provided a link in the chat for those who are participating live, and it will also be available via follow-up email to attendees as well as on our website. Before we jump in, I'd like to review the Zoom controls. This session is being presented in a webinar format, so you don't need to worry about connecting your microphone or camera. However, we need your participation, so please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask us questions. If you are joining us from the Zoom desktop or web browser, it's at the bottom of your screen, and it's on the top right if you are on a mobile device. Please ask your questions in the Q&A panel rather than in the chat panel. In the chat panel, we will be providing helpful links and other information. Once you click the Q&A button, a dialog box will open up, allowing you to type your question. Our marketing staff members, Stephanie Bukian and Anissa Barton-Thompson, will be standing by to assist. We'll be answering your questions at the end of the session, although often you may find that the question you have has been answered during the course of the presentation. With that said, let's take a look at today's agenda. We'll begin by meeting Dr. Brian Jarrett, Program Coordinator and Professor of NCRP at CSUDH, and Dr. Dr Castro, Professor in the College of Education and NCRP. They will discuss the current professional outlook and introduce you to the program via an overview of benefits, expectations, and course details. Then we'll go over how to apply and address your questions in the Q&A session. We'll also have a survey at the end of this webinar, and we'd love to get your feedback so we can make our future events even better. If you're on social media, please use the hashtag hashtag CSUDH Extended Ed, or tag us at CSUDH Extended Ed. So with that said, Dr. Jarrett, take us away.
Thanks very much, Keith. I appreciate that. I hope everybody's having a good evening, and welcome you to this session. I would like to say a little bit about myself and then pass it over to Dr. Castro, who's with me tonight as well. We represent the NCRP program. So my work, I was started in 1992 as a lawyer in Vancouver, British Columbia. I've worked I'm licensed as a lawyer in Washington State and British Columbia, and worked in both places. And started out early on doing family law practice, and ended up going from the law side of things to the dispute resolution side, working as a mediator, arbitrator, and so forth. I ended up going back to university, back to school, and doing graduate work, and worked at the University of Alaska, where I did family mediations. I also did work with First Nations, with restorative practice in First Nations, in the Upper Tanana region, for example. Worked with Magistrate Mike Jackson, Cake, Alaska, doing restorative work. And so my areas of practice would be employment, labor, family mediations, and working on the restorative side in the criminal justice system. Dr. Castro, over to you.
Rene Castro, and I currently serve as a faculty member at CSU Dominguez Hills and teach in the NCRP program. Some of the courses I teach are labor and workplace conflict, intercultural conflict, negotiation and collective bargaining, arbitration, and ethics. Prior to joining the campus, I served as the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Employee and Labor Relations at the California State University Office of the Chancellor. In this role, I oversaw the grievance and arbitration process for the entire CSU system with over 40,000 employees and covering 13 collective bargaining agreements. Overall, I have 30+ years of experience in public and private sector labor relations, including 18 years of experience on the union side, as well as over a decade serving in several senior university administrative positions within the CSU system. I want to welcome all of you to this information session and hope to work with you at some point in the future. Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate that. So the term NCRP may not be familiar to people, and it often isn't. People say, what is NCRP? NCRP is the Program of Negotiation, Conflict Resolution, and Peace Building. So what does that entail exactly? It's all those practices that people now pay for, professional practices, basically, in a host of settings, like negotiation, mediation, arbitration, transformative dialogue, which is becoming popular right now with the policing issues, ombuds practices, the ombudsman, facilitation, evaluation, investigation, dispute systems design, an upcoming and emerging field, and then restorative practices in the criminal justice setting. So there's just a host of practices that our discipline entails. So I welcome you to look at the types of practices, and that's what we do in our program. We look at them, and we have people work with those practices. The faculty work closely with those practices. This degree is for anyone in the dispute resolution applied profession looking to advance the field and their skill sets. And we're looking to advance the professional value of the graduate now and in the future. Very important to us. Renee?
So as a quick overview, the online master's degree program in negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building teaches participants valuable conflict resolution and management skills that can be applied to a range of circumstances, including police work, counseling, education, human resource management, labor relations, litigation, business negotiation, supervision, administration, and more. Other career applications include alternative dispute resolution, mediation, negotiation, arbitration, public policy, social work, teaching, intercultural and community conflicts, as well as corporate contract and purchasing. Some of the key program features include learning from leading professionals in the field who are active practitioners. The curriculum is comprised of a comprehensive study of the practical skills, methods, theory, and research in the field. And you'll have an opportunity to improve your listening, speaking, writing, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. The program is also 100% online, so it doesn't require you to be logged in at any particular time along with the rest of the class. And since no campus attendance is required, the program is convenient for people who live or work literally anywhere in the world. Another great feature is you can earn your master's degree in as little as 18 months. I'll next pass it to Dr. Jett, who'll cover the potential career opportunities, employment outlook.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. So the major strength of our program, this is important, it's applied, it's interactive, and it's practice-based education. It varies from the standard model you might see in a standard MA program, because our instructors work closely with the students. They mentor the students. They introduce the students to our professional networks. And each of your professors in this program is a practitioner. So they have a professional network to introduce you to. So that's very important to us. And we follow and mentor the students and make sure that each student has a connection to industry and practice. So can't emphasize that enough. Now, the students have an opportunity in the program to focus on their different areas. And there are a number of different sub areas in our field, sub-disciplines and practice areas. We just mentioned a few of them: arbitration, mediation, dispute systems design, restorative practices, areas in the labor relations, for example. Dr. Castro here teaches in the area of labor relations, and so he helps mentor students in that area to develop the skill sets required for that. You might also look at HR, for example. That's a big area where we connect with. Policing, helping a lot of our grads are actually work with LAPD, have worked at LAPD and some other police departments, city government, and different levels of government. We have a number of our grads working in government, LA and Los Angeles and other cities. K through 12 setting, the schools, we really work closely with the schools, and a number of our grads are working in the school setting to develop restorative programs. And criminal justice in particular, working with the courts at all levels. Our programs, in some ways, I really want to say it's better than some of the other programs around the country, because it focuses on more than just the litigated case. It isn't just about the case being in court. We do that work. We help mediate those cases in the court. We work closely with the courts, but our program goes further. It goes on to deal with organizations, to work with conflicts in organizations, in communities, in cities, in local police departments, in the fire department, so forth. So we have a more, I would say, a more robust program from that point of view. Renee, sorry, no, that's me again, sorry. So the NCRP degree, we usually need a 3.0 for our, the acceptance from the undergrad to get into the MA. We have made some exceptions where somebody has a lot of experience in industry, coming from industry already, or did the degree a while ago. You can talk to us about that, and our faculty, Renee and I, will be very work closely with you on that to see if we can look at exception to that. But generally, the 3.0 is the scale we use. The last 60 semester or 90 quarter units, the upper division. And we don't use the GRE, interestingly enough. We don't actually want to use the GRE. Our program decided not to, because we have qualified people in the field, and we find that we don't need that GRE for the MA and
So before we move on, I did want to reemphasize something that Brian said with regard to the minimum GPA requirements. We know from experience that there are a number of our students who are very successful in professionally and successful in our program, who actually had GPAs that were lower than the minimum required. And so I definitely want to encourage those of you who might fit in that category to apply. It's often the case that particularly with students who were in their undergraduate programs, over a decade ago, it's not reflective of their current capacity and ability to be successful in our program. So we definitely want to encourage you to apply. There are some additional steps that would be required to get a potential admission, but nonetheless, please pursue that if you're interested in this program.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. That's terrific information there. And let's go now to the courses, the particular MA courses. And we have 6 core courses. You'll see them on the screen there. And there you'll see the theories course, the communication and conflict course, the research methods course, the negotiation skills course, mediation, and professional ethics. I won't read the numbers, like you can see them there. Essentially, those are our essential core courses. And from there, students then take electives in specific skills areas: arbitration, labor relations, restorative practices. And so from the core, you then move to your electives to these other areas. Now, the program itself is 36 units. It's a 36-unit grad program. So you can think 12 courses, right? 3 times 12, 36. Generally 3 credits per course. We also have a certificate. We do the DRP. It's called the Dispute Resolution Practices Act in California. And we certify students when they take the mediation course, the 529. And they're able to gain DRPA certification through that course. So that's a course that's a certification that we are actually a sponsored certifier for that particular legislation. And so we do that for our students. We also look to students who want training in different areas of practice. And so the certification becomes oftentimes useful. Somebody already has some training, they've been doing some mediation, and they want to use that certification for that purpose. It was actually written by Dixon Dern, our faculty member who since retired. He did a lot of dispute resolution work and lawyer work. He was a Hollywood lawyer, started out many years ago, practicing for a number of the Hollywood families, actually. And he wrote that DRPA legislation. So, and then since retired from our program, but it's a big supporter of our program, NCRP. Generally, we follow the rule of 3, and that is that in the program, look for 3 elective areas that you will follow, that you will find useful, and you want to connect to the field. And here, the thing about this is that you really have to, in our area, the rule of 3 is useful because 3 areas is a lot of work to connect to. So less than 3, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough, but more than 3 is a little difficult because there's so many, things to learn in each area. And you'll have to work with the professors who are working in those areas. So that's the challenge, right? So I call it the rule of 3. That's what we use to think about the, 3 areas of elective that you'll work in and commit to working in during the program.
I would add, Brian, that given the range of possible circumstances under which you'd be looking at conflict resolution, you may be coming into the program with a particular mindset, but you'll be exposed to quite a bit of additional opportunities and situations that you might also find appealing and actually might even decide to pursue as part of when you graduate. So just be open to all the possibilities because there's quite a bit that you can gain from embracing the content of the broad range of courses.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and apply the application of those connections to industry in various places is really amazing. We have a 36-unit, basically a 36-unit master's degree, and you can transfer in 9 units from outside of the university, from another program, even from within the university, from another program, from another graduate program. We have a committee. It looks at bringing in, and it makes a petition to bring in those courses. You can do them through Open University too. So that's 3 courses essentially before coming into the program. So that's kind of nice for students who are looking to, see if they want this program degree, and so they'd like to test it a little bit. We often do that. We find people once they take a course, they want into the program because it's an emerging field that's really taking off right now. So very useful. So we have the postmaster's certificate as well in conflict analysis and resolution, and that's essentially 6 courses and 6 practice areas basically. And we'll also take credit for that as well. There's, as I say, 6 courses for that, and they provide concentration in those areas for our students. Dr. Castro?
So I want to cover some financial and program cost information. So one of the great program cost features, particularly for those of you outside of California, is that all students pay the same tuition. So there's no difference if you're in-state, out-of-state, or as an international student, all fees will be the same. For our master's program, the cost is $321 per credit unit. With the expectation of completing 36 units, the overall cost will be about $11,500 plus books and other fees. As for the postmaster certificate program, again, the unit cost is the same, $321 per credit unit. The expectation is 18 units, so that cost will bring you at just below $6,000 plus books and fees. There are some financial aid options available. And so for direct links and additional information regarding financial assistance options for the NCRP program, please refer to the information kit that you've been provided. A link has also been provided in the chat for those of you who are attending the live session. But some of the possibilities include distance learning aid, an NCRP scholarship called the Deborah Thomas Memorial Fund, as well as a graduate equity fellowship. So again, please refer to the information kit for all the possible options, including student loans of various types. And you'll find quite a bit of helpful resources for those of you in need of financial assistance. As for the application process, the important dates to know are the application windows. For the fall term, admission applications can be submitted between October 1 through July 15th, with all materials being required submitted by August 1. If you are intending to apply for a spring admission, admission applications can be submitted between August 1 and November 15th, again with the spring materials deadline being December 1. We unfortunately do not accept applications for summer term, so you'll need to apply for either the fall or spring term. In terms of the actual process of applying, please go to calstate.edu/apply and select the term you are applying for. Again, that would be fall or spring. You then create an account and pay your $70 application fee. The reference kit also includes a step-by-step guide for the application process at this stage. Now, having paid your fee, the next step would be to go to the Add Programs tab. So you would click on the Add Programs tab and search for NCRP. And again, there's very specific information in the information kit with step-by-step guides. Now, the application instructions we provided reflect both the MA degree as well as a master's certificate. When you're applying, you will be required to submit the following into the fourth quadrant of the Cal State Apply application. That is number one, a 500-word biographical essay, 3 letters of recommendation, and the appropriate official transcripts. An important piece of information is that the biographical statement and each letter of recommendation should address the following. One is, what in your background demonstrates your academic and professional readiness for the program? Secondly, why you desire this degree or certificate. And lastly, tell us about what you plan to do with the degree or certificate once obtained. As a reminder, your letters of recommendation should be educational or professional references and not personal references. Excuse me. Where possible, it is preferred that these letters be originals and on letterhead. And lastly, these biographical essays and letters of recommendation should be forwarded directly to Brian Jarrett, our program director. Now I'm going to hand it back to Brian to discuss some student testimonials.
So that's interesting. Now we're looking at why here that students were interested in the program, why they got into it, what they do, and just these are basically alumni have been through the program. Here we have Yvette Durasso, who has basically done terrific work. She was the director of the Alameda court system of the dispute resolution program. She currently teaches at the Oregon Pacific University up in Portland and elsewhere, and she runs a private conflict coaching practice. That's her area, basically, is conflict coaching and mediation. Is very successful in the field. So just a terrific practitioner. Next, we have Saira Galvan Saucedo, who just graduated in 2018. She now is working for the federal government, for the Labor Department. So the federal government now, she has basically gone in to do all kinds of good work with the mediation in labor matters, and now is building and working her way up through that system. And then next, we have Scott Martin. Now, Scott's an amazing guy. Scott basically, he was on Shark Tank, by the way. Scott has done some terrific work. He was the president of the California chapter of the Mediators Beyond Borders. He's mediated around the globe. He's been in Venezuela, mediating between the government and guerrillas. He's been up in Canada, working with the Nisga'a First Nation. He's been in African countries doing various, mediation work. He's also done work locally. He's even done work for departments at our university. He does mediation all over the place. But it's amazing. He's an amazing character because he actually sort of has his own NGO, his own nonprofit where he goes around doing this work. Actually, not just nonprofit. I think he works in a nonprofit. He also has his own mediation business as well. So very busy guy. That's Scott.
Brian, I know that some people may be just listening in and don't have access to the testimonials in video format. So I just wanted to go ahead and maybe read them back to folks so
yes,
if they're listening in. So Yvette Durazo had this to say about the program. My current enrollment in the NCRP master's program at CSUDH has given me a competitive edge and allowed me to run my professional mediation practice, as well as work as a court program director and to teach mediation at the university level. Not only did my enrollment in the program assist me with this, but the program content also prepared me to be a competent and confident applicant for these roles. This is followed by Saira Galvan Salcedo, who says the following. During my journey, I've been fortunate to have the amazing support of the NCRP faculty. The faculty provide rigorous curriculum. I've developed conflict management related professional HR skills. And then lastly, we were just discussing Scott Martin. And Scott Martin says, being in the NCRP master's program transformed and improved my professional practice, an excellent applied program. So again, thanks for the opportunity to read these.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate that. So, well, we'll go over to Keith now if you have any questions and further discussion.
Great. So thank you very much, Brian and Renee. That was an outstanding presentation, and we got through a lot very quickly, which is good because we have a lot of questions. So we'll get right to them. So the first question that several people asked is, are there internships available?
Yes, there are. In fact, we have a number of internships. We're just now working with the US DOJ with Vince Blair, Dr. Vince Blair, who is now the regional director of the US DOJ, chatting about this. We have kids managing conflict, just talking today about that with folks. So people working with local nonprofits, basically, that do this work. We have the Asian Pacific Mediation Center that works closely with us. We have a number of organizations, either governmental and or private organizations that we work with closely, and we get our students to those organizations. We make the connections, we talk to those folks so that students have a pathway into these organizations, and we work closely with them. Renee, did you want to add?
And just to follow up, what's the process for that? How do they land those internships?
So it's going to professors, and then you say, well, I'm interested, you'll hear about these organizations during the course of the semester. You say, look, I'd like to go work with, for example, I want to work in schools with kids managing conflict. And so I'd like to work with that organization. Can you connect me with the president of that organization? Our professors will then connect you, and then you'll be able to have that conversation, and you'll get a recommendation by the professor, and then you step into that role. Now, we often use credit. We'll actually have two courses, 594, 597, where we give the graduate student credit, because that's a lot of work. So it's right, we recognize it in the coursework. Renee, did you want to add anything to that?
Again, just that I would say that when you're in an internship program, you're being guided by the faculty, that's being supported by the material that you are gaining through the content of other courses. And the idea is that it really brings it all together. And so the part of the process would be both to work in support of the mission or goals of the organization in which you're interning, but also for you to come out of it with some academic work that you could potentially use It might be for publication purposes. It might be for professional advancement. It's a broad range because people have different goals and interests in terms of their involvement in the internship programs. But it's a key part of our program. And one of the steps I think that is part of the capstone course as well,
Yes.
which will sort of culminate your experience in the program.
Okay.
And the key to it, I should add, the key to it, often those internship positions turn into jobs. We've got a number of people employed in these organizations as a result of them going in through the internship route. Keith, sorry.
Okay, so to that point, aside from the internships, in terms of the practice that people need, do the faculty help in making those connections, or do you need a current position already, or how does that work?
No, the faculty do help in making those connections. So every teacher in the program is also a practitioner in that area they're teaching. So they know all of the other practitioners. They know the clientele base. They know the people who are, the users using these services. So they connect you to those other individuals, the people in the industry, basically. And it's very important to do that. Through our instructors will help the student do that. And that's how you gain the practice skills, basically. So, yeah, Renee, did you want to add anything there, or I don't want to?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think that, all of us are very willing and able to use our professional resources and connections to help facilitate folks getting into an internship program that suits their professional and academic interests.
Okay, so continuing that same sort of vein, is there a mentoring program within the master's program?
It's an informal mentoring program. Basically, what happens is the student takes the 6 core courses, and they're the skills that are fundamental to all the elective areas. Then the student goes on to work in those elective areas, and it's during those elective areas, that you're then getting mentored with the instructor. You connect with, and we encourage it. The students and the instructors connect closely to start building the craft. It's a sort of a training model. As you're building the craft, at the same time is just, it's not just reading books and theory and all that. It's very much a craft that the professor's working with a student to develop. And so in the particular discipline area, like family mediation, for example, that's got so many intricate moving parts to it that the instructor then helps that the student develop an understanding of all those different aspects, areas of practice, ethics, the legal aspects, and then how to connect that to the industry, how to promote oneself as a mediator, arbitrator, and so forth, contracting, intake, how to do intake, how to screen for violence, all those different things that are part of the practice.
Okay.
So one of the specific things, for example, that I've done with students in a sort of mentorship role is, when they express an interest in pursuing a career in labor relations or human resources, which is my background and strength, I might review their application essays, system with that regard. Some cases provide a professional reference or academic reference if that's appropriate, and really just sort of guide them to gain a better understanding of the industry, the expectations of the roles in which they're potentially pursuing, how to navigate that role with a particular goal in mind in terms of professional advancement. So these are all things that, from my own experience, I share with those who are seeking that kind of information. So I would definitely encourage you to build those kinds of relationships with your faculty members and engage them on the potential career opportunities that they themselves have experienced and can help you navigate.
I mean, we have, just to add to that, thank you, Renee. To add to that, we have a U.S. U.S. ambassador teaching in our program. He connects people to the Foreign Service and the like. I mean, we have the Tennessee Ombudsman, Gerald Pepika, and he gets people connect. He's also the vice president of the National Ombudsman Association, so he connects people to the ombudsman practice, really growing area right now. And we have, Professor Kreiser, who teaches program evaluation, dispute systems design, and connecting students with government agencies and private organizations that are doing that work. So there are a number of the faculty are amazing in our program. They're all applied practitioners. Really, they're applied first. They're practitioners first, and then they're teachers second. And they're good teachers too. Okay.
Okay, so the next questions are about if somebody's on the borderline, like if they have a 2.99 or a little bit less than a 3.0 GPA, is there some sort of conditional admission process, or how does that work?
So we have a committee, and so we have a committee who reviews the applications. We make a recommendation based on all of the facts, the totality of the circumstances of a student. We often know that, for example, we've had students, like Dr. Castro pointed out, who didn't quite make the 3, but they were top-notch mediators, leading in the field already, practicing, making a living. So we have decided that there are occasionally cases like this where we want people to be included. And so what we've done is first we go to our internal committee at NCRP, then we make recommendations to the graduate studies unit. And so they ultimately make the decision, but we recommend. So we get a plan with the student to think about how to do this. And then with our committee, and then what we do is we make recommendations to the graduate studies division based on other factors like the person's background, and a host of other things that we think are really good qualities that people bring to this work. And Renee, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just say to any of you that fall below the minimum 3.0 requirement, don't eliminate yourself out of the running simply because of that. There is, I'm sure, an individual story to tell and circumstances that could potentially demonstrate why you would otherwise be very successful and why this potential opportunity would be meaningful to you personally and professionally. And I think the key there is knowing that you may have that initial, minimum requirement not being met, that you ready yourself through the application process, write a strong biographical essay, prepare the folks who are writing your letters of recommendation to hit on the points about you and your capacity to be successful in the program. Because at the end of the day, we use that information to make our own determinations as to whether or not you're ready and likely to be successful in the program. So if I encourage everybody to do that, but certainly if those of you who are below the minimum GPA requirement, that is an absolutely important part of your process.
And I should add to that some students they've said, okay, I didn't get in this time, but what I'm going to do is take some open university courses to see what the program is about. And of course, that strengthens their application because now we have courses, we see them in the program, they're doing well, and now we can, make an argument for that, and that helps as well.
That's important to point out that students do have the option of enrolling in individual courses in this program before they are admitted, so that as you say, that would strengthen their case for being admitted to the program.
Yeah, and not only does it demonstrate their capacity to do graduate level work, it actually will contribute to increasing your GPA. Those courses are now counted as part of the calculation for your overall GPA, and so could ultimately even bring you over the minimum requirement and no longer make that an issue.
Exactly.
All right, a more specific question next. Somebody wants to know how to apply all these practices in the humanitarian aid field. And I think we had an example of somebody who's done that already, but if you would like to speak to that.
What we do there is we connect, folks interested in these areas to graduates, people who are actually working in these areas. So Scott Martin, that Keith referred to there, is actually doing that. He does work in various countries. He does it with Mediators Beyond Borders. Mediators Beyond Borders is an organization that does that very thing. It's working in the humanitarian area with other professions, medical doctors, lawyers, so forth. And so we could connect you with them as you come to the program. We'll make sure you have all those connections. There are many other ways too, but that's one way that people find useful.
Yeah, and I would just say, as much as you should connect with faculty, connect with our alumni. Our alumni are very passionate about our program and the work that they do. And so they are ultimately some great resources that people could connect with as far as opportunities and ways in which they can pursue their professional interests with the training and preparation they've received from our program.
Our program regularly makes the top 10 lists, across the country. And this is one of the reasons we do connect people to the practice settings. I should also say that, just there, you have a lot of opportunities. I mean, that's kind of what the program is about. It's very applied. So, you know, just have a think about that, because it really is, you know, it's not the standard model where you know, the professor just lectures at you or something. We actually interact with our students and we interact in the practice areas. So it's a very different frame than the standard MA program.
Yes, and the people can connect with our alumni through our social media sites as well. Next question is from an international student who wants to apply to the program. And they're asking what documents are required for someone who has 12 years of experience in the field.
Well, first of all, that's fantastic that you have 12 years of experience. That right there will be something we look closely at. And then basically we have a statement of purpose, you know, where you write for graduate program, a statement of interest, statement of purpose. We have 3 letters of reference, and so you find professional references or academic references are useful. And the GPA, the transcripts. So we need the transcripts as well. And we're opening 2 spaces. So we have 2 places we both accept for the fall and for the spring. So we're coming up by November 15th, I believe is the deadline for accept new applications for the spring. So that's nice. We've opened that up this year, which is kind of nice. Second place was the demand.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would just add that also in terms of someone that's coming in with experience, that's clearly something you want to highlight and talk about what you hope to gain and develop from the program in terms of your professional goals and life. And, you know, that's an excellent selling point for why we want to admit you into the program, because not only are you going to be successful in the program and contributing out there as a professional, but you're also sharing your own ideas and experiences with your colleagues who are students in the program. And it's a great way to learn. Many of our folks in the program are active professionals who are looking for a degree to advance further, for getting that additional preparation that's going to develop their career even stronger. But again, don't underestimate the value of your colleagues who are going to be sitting alongside you virtually, of course, in the classroom, and the value that they bring to the program as well.
This program was from 1981-82. It's been continuing. So we have a lot of the students are still in professional settings, are still in touch with each other because of our program. That's a collegial model for people in the, you know, to keep these connections going, professional connections for many years.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking, are there any courses or classes just to become an arbitrator, and can they just take those classes?
Yeah, we do have specific arbitration courses. In fact, Dr. Castro here teaches along with John Swarbrick. John Swarbrick, just to mention, is perhaps you could say a word or two about John, but John and Renee are actually stewarding the arbitration material in connection in particular to labor relations and other areas of interest. So Renee, just want to chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, directly in terms of the question, you're certainly welcome to and able to enroll through Open University, and you can look into the specific process for doing that. But that's certainly one way in which people who are really not able to invest the time and effort into a full-on program or even the certificate program can at the same time experience a graduate level course with some very experienced folks. Both John Swarbrick and I have been in the field collectively over 60 years. And we enjoy bringing that into the classroom through our case studies and opportunities to engage. What I think makes our program even better is the courses I teach with John, for that matter, are that we do actually oftentimes take differing points of view and perspectives on the same circumstances because of our background and how we got to where we got. And so oftentimes students really appreciate the diversity and perspectives that we bring into the same classroom at the same time.
That's great.
Okay. So a person is asking about the master's degree as opposed to the postmaster's certificate. Do they just need the master's degree, or does the certificate open up more career options?
So the master's is designed structurally to provide those basics, those essential skill sets. So, research methods, theories, communication and conflict, these core areas. We go into the psychology, sociology, applied theory, in those areas. And so that provides that base. And then we have elective courses. That's the MA. The postmaster's certificate is actually meant as an application of skills courses in 6 areas, basically 6 courses. So that's the distinction. So the master's to postmaster's certificate doesn't do those core courses that you would see. You can take them, but usually people take postmasters to get skills in particular areas. Sometimes they come back too. They do the masters and they want to continue to develop in their practice in certain areas, and they know certain people are teaching, and our professors or practitioners often prominent, so they want a course with that particular practitioner because they want that connection to industry network and skill sets and be endorsed by the particular professors.
Yeah.
We have organizations. Sorry, Nate. We have organizations also that support our both masters and certificate. American Arbitration Association, the National, Association of Family and Community Mediators, and so forth. And a number of those people that are teaching are connected to all these different organizations, and so the certificate and the masters help to make people make connections through these 2 degrees. Sorry, Renee.
I was just going to say, so some folks who have actually gone through our master's program and who actually come back for our postmaster certificate are coming back because they really want to sort of hone their knowledge and skills in a particular area. And so this gives them the opportunity to be very focused in terms of why they are back in the certificate program. So obviously in my field, for example, some might not have had the opportunity to take my arbitration class or my negotiation and collective bargaining class. And so this gives them the opportunity to come back and really hone that skill and leave the program that much more confident with having obtained that skill set.
And that's a very good class. I'm getting a lot of good feedback from students. It's just a terrific class. People are very, very pleased with what you're doing in there as well, Renee, you and John.
Thank you.
It's about 10 minutes before the hour, and I just want to alert everyone that we have a lot more questions, and so we're going to be going well beyond the hour. We're going to try to get to everybody, but if we don't get to you, please email us at ncrp@csudh.edu. So we'll try to get to everyone. So first, a few quick questions on the application process. Is the biographical essay a 500-word minimum or maximum?
Minimum.
Minimum. Okay. Next question. If CSUDH was their undergraduate degree, do they need to request transcripts, or how does that work?
They can use, I believe, the unofficial transcripts from our own school, from CSUDH.
Okay.
So, yeah. We can take the money, basically, by doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. We want students, by the way, we're about that.
Okay. Next question. Who is taking the program? Are you finding it's more early career professionals or mid-career professionals, or how does that trend go?
I would say more toward the non-traditional students, the people already involved in industry in one aspect or another, in practice and so forth. But we do get some, traditional students right out of a BA, and they want to develop. That's what's neat about our classes, because you get this mix of, lawyers, ombudsmen, judges, mediators are already working in the field, educators, people from K through 12, people from universities. And also you do get occasionally somebody right out of, undergrad in anthropology is really good, committed to the field. So, for example, wants to work in the restorative area. So you'll get a lot of people that are interacting, and it's a very supportive group. I know I talk with my hands and I shouldn't, but I really enjoy talking with my hands.
Yeah, I would say from my experience, there's a lot of, as Brian pointed out, some folks who are just fresh out of their undergraduate programs, but many are active in their field, mid-career. Some are even actually actively looking to change careers later in their life and, really pursue a completely different career path. And this opens that opportunity up as well. So you have a broad range of folks and why they're interested, and ages are across the board as well. So that's what I think makes it very exciting, because people who are coming in fresh out of undergraduate programs are interacting with folks who've had 30+ years in their professions and are now changing course or coming back for that additional update in terms of their preparation.
And we find it very collegial in the classroom because of that. And then it's cross mentorship. People are actually working in certain areas and passing along their work to people so that they can benefit from it as well. So it's really kind of nice, the classroom environment. Keith.
Okay. This next student is very interested in pursuing a foreign policy / international relations focus, and wonders if you could speak to the curriculum in that regard.
Yes. So that's Ambassador Steve Rhodes. He's working in that area. He was the former, the ambassador to Zimbabwe. To the country, he's worked in federal service jobs, worked in the White House. He knows everybody, and he brings everybody to the classroom. He's terrific. He brings in, all kinds of prominent speakers to the classroom. It's amazing. Particularly with Zoom now, we can do that. So look for Steve Rhodes, Ambassador Steve Rhodes. Just a stellar guy, and he knows everybody in the field, and he basically has all the practice knowledge in the international area. He ran an embassy, and so he's the go-to person there.
Okay.
So what I would say to this individual and interested in pursuing that particular orientation is to excuse me, to communicate that interest to your faculty, because oftentimes your final papers, your course submissions can be tailored around your interest, right? So subject matter might be arbitration, but arbitration covers a broad range from commercial, international, arbitration between, countries, as well as in the collective bargaining context, which is my home, right? So I always encourage students to submit their final paper in an area that prepares them academically and professionally for where they want to end up. So I would encourage you to talk to your faculty about that, because many are open to allowing you that latitude as you submit your final work.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Next question. What percentage of applicants were accepted into the master's program last year, and what is the ratio of faculty to students for the master's program?
So the ratio I can speak about, quickly here is it's 18-1. So one professor to 8, that's what we're aiming for. So one professor would have 18 students. You often see like at universities like 40 or 30, 40 students per class. We don't do that. We're actually holding it to 18 to keep the quality high. In terms of the acceptance rate and so forth, I don't think we're keeping data currently on that, Renee.
Yeah, I don't have that information.
Okay. We'll get information to you though. Yeah. Renee?
Okay. Back to the group projects and the internships. Are there group projects where you have the opportunity to connect with your peers in the cohort?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, most of the time we work with students work in group settings, but I should say too that the group work is really work. It's collegial and so forth. It's not one person doing a group in the project and a few people hanging on. You see in some master's programs, very much about accountability and people working together. Right? Okay. Yeah.
And regarding the internships, are our connections mostly in California, or do we have them elsewhere as well?
We have them elsewhere across the country. Hawaii, Canada, was in my connection to Canada, Alaska, for example, also where I was as well. So we can have people work in tribes in Alaska in various settings through the connections of the professors. And that's just one example I'm giving there through my connections. Renee, did you want to add anything to that also?
I think in that regard, I mean, given that our students are literally all over the world, if you're not able to, in some instances, students want to come to a particular geographic region to pursue an opportunity. Other cases, they're looking for it within their own area of residence. And so, we are more than happy as faculty to allow ourselves to be used as an entree and introduction for what our program is about and how it would be of value to them as folks who might sponsor an internship or opportunity. And so there would be some legwork, because while we are everywhere, we don't necessarily have a foothold in every spot, but I would encourage you to work with your faculty, who oftentimes are very capable and skilled at helping you navigate and negotiate an internship opportunity or professional opportunity for that matter.
In other words, we will work with those organizations in various places and have them connect with us as well. And we'll start that dialogue so we can help the student in that situation.
Okay. Next person is asking if we have any sort of joint program with a JD. Is that?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do. I would get it right. How to say that? Southwestern University, the law school. We have an MOU with that university where you can do 1 year of our MA and you can do 2 years of their JD. Count a year of our MA to their JD, and you can go into their JD with 3 years only. You don't need the full undergrad to get into the law school there, as through the connection with our program. We have an undergrad as well, the BA part of the program. So we've done that. We also have informal agreements with a number of universities. We have colleagues at these various universities that run programs like ours. And so we're regularly in touch with those programs. The University of Hawaii Law School, the University UNLV in Las Vegas, the Saltman Center there. Jean Sternlight is the person who's director. I work with her regularly. The University of Missouri, where I actually got my graduate training in mediation, as well as the University of Hawaii. The University of Missouri folks support our students. Salisbury University in Maryland. We have some universities in Canada, Simon Fraser University and others. So the law schools and other programs look to support our program. We're regularly in touch with them actually all the time, talking to them, because we meet at conferences, and we're also networking and share students. So
the next person's asking about the time commitment. So if somebody's working full time, how many classes would they take? So
there, Renee, you might want to chime in. It sort of varies on the student, how efficient you're being and so forth. So there's a bit of variation in there. I always think that a graduate course is heavier than an undergrad course for sure, because it's more applied, it's interactive, and you're doing case studies. So with the instructor, and they're leading you through the various aspects, ethics, legal, practice methods and so forth. So that's multidimensional learning in a sense. So it requires more than a regular undergrad class. But I would say an evening per week, at least for a class, an evening at least, but maybe more depending on the student. Yeah, Renee?
Yeah, so I would recommend a maximum of 2 courses for most folks. If your circumstances allow you the ability to give more time to the program, then by all means, and you just have to understand your readiness, and some of that is measured by your success in the courses themselves, right? So it's writing is an important feature of the program. I require writing virtually every week in terms of submission. There's obviously the assigned reading, but also some supplemental readings that are useful as well. And if you bite off more than you could reasonably chew, so to speak, then you don't really avail yourselves of some of the supplemental opportunities that might be available and things of that sort. So it's really about your own time management. But again, I think 2 courses would be a good gauge to start, and then you could decide from there whether it's you're ready to take on more. It also might depend upon the nature of the course itself. Some of our courses are more challenging to some of our students, and so knowing that and talking to other students, you might want to allow yourselves the ability to take a lighter load in readiness for that particular challenge. And again, that's something that in talking to your fellow students and those that have been in the program before you, would it be a helpful gauge to understand the expectations and obligations that you might have.
I just really want to emphasize that the writing in each of the courses, we have the writing requirements. And so you're reading, you're writing, you're basically presenting as well. We're training how to present, professionally in these settings with this material and the cases and the ethical issues and so forth that come up. So you can see that it is it's in that sense it challenges people to really, to develop all these skill sets.
So somebody's asking if because the program is online and this is a negotiation program, how do students engage with instructors and students? Are there live office hours? How does all that work?
Yeah, so Zoom, we're using Zoom right now for conferencing. So just like in the room right now, this is how you would experience a connection with the professors. Now, some professors do things, and we think that's good. They have different approaches to things. So often Zoom is the way. So we'll have our Zoom room, we'll have the cases right there that we're handling in the Zoom room. And by the way, I'll just tell you this, many of these processes are going online. They are online currently, the courts. You just look across the board, or various organizations now using Zoom to have the meetings. So we're seeing these processes now in various courts all over the US and Canada, and also private arbitration and mediation and so forth going into these processes. So teaching through Zoom is, MS Teams is another program that the courts are using, and arbitrators are using. So we're going to see a lot more of the rise of that. So this is actually a good forum in a sense to be working online, because we're going to see a lot more of the industry go this way actually. And it is going this way right now because of COVID, but I think some more permanent changes as a result of that. But I would say also Blackboard, we use the Blackboard platform for discussions. And, we work out how that is for the students. We ask students where they can meet and so forth. If they're going to meet asynchronous, we call it, at one time, we look for that, a good time for students to meet. And some professors like to use the discussion boards as well, or primarily, or they'll do record lectures as well. So Renee, can I?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so, I teach a negotiation course along with John Swarbrick. And one of the things that I think we enjoy, and I think the students enjoy, is the opportunity to actually role play negotiations, for example, where we will have the groups. We'll do separate groups because sometimes our enrollment is such that we need to break them up into two groups. For example, a Thursday session and a Saturday session of the same content. And during these sessions, we will actually have role play opportunities where someone will play, party A, a seller, the other party B, a buyer. And they are each given very specific instructions and goals in terms of desired outcomes. And they apply what they've learned in the course up to that stage to negotiate that process out. And many of our students get the opportunity to do that. And in some cases, everybody's paired up with somebody else and doing it simultaneously. And then, we have them report back and everybody shares kind of their experiences and things of that sort. And so it's a great learning opportunity as well. And we do the best that we can with the Zoom environment. But what we've seen so far is that it hasn't really inhibited people from having the opportunity to actually practice the skills that they're learning in the classroom.
Yeah, that's very good.
So some more career-related questions. Somebody wants to get involved in research as a career, and they're wondering if this program will help boost that effort.
Well, I could say yes to that big time. I'm actually really enjoy the research. And even though I come from practice, I did a PhD myself. And I'm very much about the research because I'm trying to push a number of us are trying to move the field forward. And so we have a number of our students that get involved in the research end and end up publishing their papers. We encourage our students to publish their papers. We've had a lot of our students publish in the journals, trade journals, peer-reviewed journals, professional journals, academic journals, online, mediate.com, an online journal that's read around the world, basically. A number of our students publishing in these various venues. So I would say that we're very much about the student who wants to go on and develop, maybe even teach in the industry, in the field, in various settings, university, college, community colleges, wherever that might be, graduate teaching. We encourage those students, and we have that equity grant for that, actually. That's designed for people who want to develop and give back to, as professors, as teachers. We have a recent student who just, Jameson Lingle, who just did remarkable work, is now at The Hague and is continuing to do research on the Harvard Program of Negotiation model of mediation. It's called interest-based mediation. And he's taken that now and he's developed into a kind of a political, application, and it's doing quite well. So we have students actually from our program that are known in the industry because of their academic work. Also, I would say Yvette Durasso, just you saw on the slide there earlier, she's publishing, just wrote a book on, called it Conflict IQ. You remember emotional, there was intelligence, IQ, quotient IQ. Then there was EQ, intelligent, emotional quotient. Now she just wrote a book called The Conflict Quotient and how that's useful in organizations. And so she takes that work even further now. It's doing quite well with that book.
Okay, so next question, again, career related. Somebody wants to know how the NCRP works when paired with an MLS. I'm not familiar with an MLS, but
that's the multiple listing service for the real estate company. If it is, we do have several realtors, by the way, have come on to work in the real estate. If it is, out of the real estate area. I think you might also be talking about the modern language system of references.
Could be.
Citation system. If it's that, we generally use APA for the American Psychological Association citation system. We also write for law journals too. So we teach students a mix, but we generally have the papers done for APA if it's that. But we also need the multiple listing stuff. We do have realtors actually that are getting involved in developing there's a lot of conflicts now, as you can imagine, in foreclosures and real estate lending, lending for buying homes is a big mediation area. So we have some students involved on that side. I don't know which one it is, but both apply.
Okay. Somebody's asking if they apply and are accepted, can they defer admission to another semester?
Yes, we can do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Next question. Somebody's asking if this program is relevant to someone in law enforcement, and I know that for a fact because this program started as a program for law enforcement.
That's right. In fact, so LAPD was a lot of the students who came from LAPD and the sheriff's office, and they maintain those connections to this day with the program. We work with the FBI, we work with the U.S. Department of Justice. I just mentioned earlier in the talk, Vince Blair. We are working in several police departments, and a number of our students who have gone through the program years ago are now retired from LAPD and are now teaching at various universities and colleges. And I'm just thinking of Jack Katz, who is Mr. Katz is teaching in where is it at? South. It's community college south of here. I'm trying to remember, but anyways, he was with LAPD for years and has gone on now to do that, and a big supporter of the program, basically.
By the way, the MLS was a master's in library science. We just got.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So that makes much more sense now.
Yeah, but absolutely. So we work with other programs. We've had public policy programs, MBAs, people who have take courses from one and want to take courses from another that have worked it in together professionally. We are seeing these practices like mediation and arbitration, facilitation, coaching, in going into these other fields. And so often we'll get students that want to take a course or two, or they want to connect or have a joint degree where they're working on both.
Okay, somebody's asking about individual versus group work. They find that several master's programs seem to have heavy group work, and they wanted to see what that balance is.
It sort of would depend on the instructor, but Renee, I'll let you go ahead with that one.
Yeah, sure. So given the range of locations that people are enrolled in the program, it may or may not lend itself to that. But what I always do is I always encourage my students to, if they want to pair up or more than that, to work together on a submission of a collective assignment or project, that I welcome that and encourage that. I think it's a great way to go. And particularly if they can connect with folks who are able to accommodate each and every other's schedule and produce the work that they can, however they organize themselves to do that. I definitely welcome that. I think it's a great way for the students to engage each other and work cooperatively. And I think you'd find a lot of faculty are open to that possibility as well. But it can be, I know from being even strongly encouraging that it can just be a logistical challenge that might get in the way, given the fact that people are literally in different time zones and, you know, so on and so forth.
Right. That's very good. By the way, it's Steve Katz, not Jack Katz. Sorry, Jack Katz is another guy at UCLA, also a friend of the program. But,
All right, last question, we think. Somebody's asking in what field is your PhD, Brian and Renee, and what are good fields to study beyond this master's degree?
Okay, I see that somebody just asked a question. It was actually the Master's of Legal Studies. And so,
okay.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
It's a lot more sense.
Yeah, but absolutely, we're very much connected, as you know. We take a holistic view of issues in law enforcement, so we work between communities. So a lot of times those masters are interested in those same issues, justice issues, and so forth. So we have a lot of crossover, and we have people that cross over those disciplines. And Renata Valerie is a professor we have who recently worked on the reworking of the sheriff's policies and practices and procedures in Antelope Valley, and she's doing it now for other police departments and communities and bringing people together to deal with looking at practices and policing to improve practices to make them better and so forth. Anyway, she's had a lot of success with it. She's one of our professors here, but she often works with people and folks from the criminal justice side and Master of Legal Studies and so forth. And also the other side of Masters of Legal Studies can go into the civil side, the non-criminal, and that's, you know, paralegal and working in law offices and so forth. We have a number of people in the program teaching our lawyers from their base discipline, and you know, they connect and we talk about that, and we have connections with programs like that as well. Renee?
Sure. Well, my academic background includes a master's from UCLA in urban planning with an emphasis on social policy analysis. And I'm one, like probably many of you, who actually returned to the university at the graduate level to get my EDD. So I have an EDD in educational leadership with a focus on higher education. And you know, so that's my academic background, but most of what I contribute to the classroom is from my 30 years plus of professional experience.
So yeah, just quickly, I've got a PhD in sociology. My base discipline was law, a master's of law, a JD, and a sociology PhD. You know, a number of the people in the program, they have PhDs, they'll have an EDD, they'll have the law degree, the JD or an LLM. It's called an LLM from the law schools. So we have a number of folks, and we have some people that have this degree that are teaching in the program. Pastor Guy Witherspoon has his master's MBA, and he also has this master's that we got many years ago, and he now teaches pastoral mediation and related to his work with the churches. So a very interesting area, by the way, very developing and growing area.
Okay. So I thought we were getting away, but we got 3 more questions that came in. 2 of them have to do with different fields that this might lead to. One person is asking about criminology and criminology research, and the other person is asking about arbitration, particularly in sports, such as salary arbitration. So I wonder if you could comment on those potential careers.
Yes. So with regard to the criminal justice end of it, there was a real, we're seeing a sea change, you know, in terms of how criminal justice is done currently. So we're going to see a lot more practices, the restorative practice. They call it restorative justice. The academics call it restorative justice. The practitioners call it restorative practices. And so you're seeing all these different, like circle peacemaking, diversionary programs, you know, victim offender mediation, victim offender reconciliation programs, reparative panels. There's all these names of these various practices. But basically, we're seeing those practices being implemented now, and then re-entry in the criminal justice system. We're looking, these practices involve that as well. So we have a number of professors connected and teaching those practices and how to do those things. On the sports side, we have Bill Strickland is teaching with us. He's the agent for two Toronto Grizzlies, and he was the agent for Michael Jordan. And so he teaches in our program. He's he mediates and arbitrates and advocates in the sports area. And so he teaches entertainment, the sports and entertainment side of dispute resolution. and got a following, and he's well known. He's actually, that name should ring a bell. He's quite well known in the country actually for his work. And anyways, the entertainment area has been a big area for us because of our location. And we had Dixon Dern, of course, right? I mentioned earlier, who got an Emmy. He's a lawyer in Hollywood that started doing mediations and all that, and has taught a number of times. He's a friend of the program. And so we continue to keep that connection to the entertainment sports area through these faculty.
Okay. So last question. What kinds of projects or theses are expected? What kind of projects and theses do you see, and which would be good for the program?
Well, now that can range based on the area that the person's working in. So if it's, Renee had mentioned here, labor relations or the arbitration area. So you might do your writing project on that area. So you pick an issue in that area you want to develop, and then you want to contribute that to the field. You want to get 2 presentations to conferences to present, and you want to publish that. So you want to get it out there in the journals. You want to get your name out there. You want to have people see your work at conferences and so forth, because that's how you get the work. It's a secret that people don't often tell us. The other practitioners will get you to the market. So that's how you do it. And, we have by the way, we have a travel grant, $1,000. The travel grant, the graduate studies, it supports presentation at these conferences. So, hotel room, the fee for the conference and so forth. And so we encourage that among our students. A lot of our students are presenting and writing their papers and publishing their papers because that's what we encourage. Renee?
So one of the fun projects that I have in my labor conflict and even bring into my arbitration course and negotiation course is the example of the Kaiser Permanente labor management partnership. And so they get to dissect the history of those relationships, excuse me, and look at the, excuse me a second, sorry.
That's the Kaiser Permanente and Gaia case. It's a famous case in California, right? Is that the one you're referring to, Renee? So that was a case that there's a big controversy that Renee's talking to about the issue of, arbitration when you have a party that's not in a union and you have an employer and employee and the power imbalance there. And so there's a big debate right now. Epic Systems is the Supreme Court case so Renee, I'm just talking about that area, that labor arbitration area where there's.
I apologize for that. So what I like to do is bring that very, very important national example where people really get to dissect the interactions that occurred historically between the labor and management folks at Kaiser Permanente, and they get to look at it in the context of when it was appropriate to use the excuse me, integrative as well as distributive bargaining styles into the process.
Great. We'll let you stop there, Renee, because you know we're
glass of water. Yeah.
So this has been terrific. Thank you very much, Brian and Renee, for all the terrific answers. And so if anything comes up after this webinar, please feel free to email us at ncrp@csudh.edu. You can answer any questions about both about the program and about your personal situation and so forth.
Yes.
When you're ready to apply, please visit Cal State Apply. That's www.calstate.edu/apply. And if you just Google Cal State Apply, it'll come up. So this concludes our program for today. We'd love to get your feedback on today's session. So please let us know how we can improve by visiting the webinar feedback site at bit.ly/CSUDH-webinar-feedback. Again, feel free to connect with us on our website or on Facebook. And we'll stay in the session for a few minutes more to give everyone a chance to jot down last minute notes and download the information kit from the chat panel. The recording for this session will be available on our website and linked on social media shortly after this session. And when you're ready to leave, simply click the red leave button in the corner of your screen. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in class.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.